Last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 1482, called the Tenant Protections Act of 2019. It was designed to prevent rent gouging and arbitrary evictions. It's supposed to protect renters suffering from the state's housing crunch. But there is a gap period. The protections don't go into effect until the new year. And meanwhile, several city council members in Los Angeles report that their offices are getting a spike in calls over sudden eviction notices and rent increases. Susan Hunter with Housing as a Human Right was one of dozens of housing advocates who showed up at the LA City Council chambers Tuesday.
We need to protect as many renters as we can right now. We're begging you, please do not kick this to committee. We're begging you, please, to help protect these tenants right now. I have a tenant who is actually getting evicted today on a 60-day notice. We don't have time.
Councilmember Nuri Martinez crafted the proposal to stop all rent increases between now and January. She said people are struggling to make payments as is, and it's cheaper to keep people in their homes than it is to build more affordable housing. And she said allowing a gap period between now and January, when the state protection for renters goes into effect, would be counterproductive.
There is no protection whatsoever for landlords not to increase your rent and have just cause to evict you within 60 days. Because if that's all it takes, all they need to do is notify you for 60 days, and just cause is good enough to say if you're not paying your rent, if you're not meeting your obligation of paying your rent, you're out on the streets.
Martinez also called for an expansion of programs designed to help struggling renters keep up with rent. Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell criticized any landlords who take advantage of the gap period.
The humanitarian crisis of homelessness and displacement of lower-income renters in our city comes at a time when 60% of the city's residents are renters. 58% of renters are what's called rent burdened. They pay over 30% of their income for rent. 1/3 of renters pay over 50% of their income for rent.
Councilmember Paul Corrett said the LA ordinances will stop rent increases and no-cause evictions for people living in units built before 2006, just like the state law. He said the ordinance should have been enacted today, but the city attorney needs more time to review the details of the local law. Councilmember Curran Price Jr. said that the recent spike in evictions includes people who live in subsidized housing and large families.
We need to stand together, colleagues, to protect LA tenants until the state bill takes effect. The time is now.
A representative of the city attorney's office says they're looking into whether or not the council can make its ordinance retroactive to August 8th, when the governor signed the Tenant Protection Act, in order to reverse the opportunistic evictions that have already taken place. 3/4 of renters in Los Angeles are in older units covered by a rent stabilization ordinance. The state law and the local emergency ordinance would provide protections for an estimated 138,000 other units in the city. Dan Fritz, Pacifica Radio KPFK, Los Angeles.